Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CEW podcast. Now, for reference, I am recording this later than I had hoped. It just be what it be. And well, you know what? Life happens. I'll keep it real. We'll quickly just get onto the updates, and I will go from there. So, basically, how have I been in July? Productive, I guess you could say. A lot's been happening. I'm gearing up, obviously, to go for my degree. Things have been kind of going with that. I've got to keep an eye on that this month, because obviously, come September, it begins, and that's quite interesting because that's the reason why I'm pumping out so much content. You guys have probably seen it. I've been uploading like at least 2 videos. I think at least 2 videos a week at this point. At least once a week, but most of the times like 2 or 3. And that's because come September, I don't know what is going to be happening. So I'm just enjoying the ride for what it is, which is the ride itself. I'm taking it all in my stride, and I'm rolling with it. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm enjoying every single minute of it, really, and yeah. Apologies if you can hear that. I don't know why. It's like 11, and for some weird reason, there's like construction going on outside. It's insane. But yeah, I just thought I'd give you all a quick update. I want to thank everyone who has submitted something for the open challenge night. I just want to let you know that I have gone through all of the applications. I have made my decisions on said applications, and you will find out, obviously, as the episodes go on, whether or not your court has made it to an episode. Obviously, I'm recording this on the day that episode 1 comes out, which I said doesn't have anyone who's filled out the forms since it's been publicly released. I did have it on the Discord for a little bit for the Network Championship specifically, so there's that. And yeah, I think that's really all the updates. Nothing super crazy has happened yet, but obviously give me until the end of August, and I guarantee you I will say that everything has changed, because that's how it works in my life at the moment. But hopefully content doesn't change too much. We've got quite a bit lined up for August. I've got the plan kind of in place, and hopefully, I don't really want to say anything, but, I guess it's just sort of to put a bit of an accountability onto myself. Hopefully, Infamous will be in production by the end of the month. I don't know if it will. There's still quite a few factors that need to be factored in before I go into production, but we should be there. We should be there. So let's just get on with the episode, because this has been something that I have been thinking of in my brain for ages, and that is CEW versus EPW. Will it ever happen? And I'm here to tell you, don't count it out. Don't never say never, I guess, is the phrase that you could really use for that. In all honesty, it is something that I have planned in a couple times, but it never comes to fruition because, originally when I was planning it, EPW was a Discord exclusive show, and the pay-per-views were the only things you saw on the network. And obviously now that we're going over to 2K23, slowly but surely, it is quite tricky to get all of the pieces in place to make it happen. But it's definitely something that I thought about. Right now, if I were to do Champions versus Champions, we have a lot of really interesting matchups. Derek Alpha, Stanley Owens. It would be, you'd have Jeff Riley versus Ryan Shamrock versus Darius Rascon, which is a really, really interesting matchup. You'd have Cyrell versus Mayu. You'd have WCD versus the Rock and Rave Experience, which I think would be really, really fun. And you'd probably have like a network title match and whatnot, and then maybe some some non-title matches as well. Obviously that would be if I just went, okay, we're going to do it like Survivor Series style, but I wouldn't want to do that. I've never really, if I was going to do CEW versus EPW, it would not be Survivor Series style. It would be a bit more like Forbidden Door, in the sense that, like, there would be some title matches, and I feel like the 2 world titles would be defended on both parts for the men and the women. You'd probably have like 1 or 2 mid-card belt matches, and then you'd probably have a bunch of non-title matches as well. But I don't know, it's just food for thought. Like, it's something I've thought about. You know, let me know in the comments if you've ever wondered if we're gonna ever do CEW versus EPW, because I feel like a lot of people who run multiple shows on a channel typically will try and have their shows kind of collide at some point. Maybe I'll do it in the future, I don't know. I said I was going to do Into the Byronverse, and that's just not been around. I guess I could just say it's a struggle, because obviously when I started working on it, I didn't have 2K23, and now I have 2K23, and now I'm like, well, I now want to do the show on 23, but by the time I have it all set up and ready to go, I'm probably going to be at, like, we're probably going to get to 2K24 at that point, by the time I get that show set up, so, I don't know. But anyways, that was my kind of thoughts on if I'd ever do CEW versus EPW. Obviously, we have a lot of crossover matches, so, you know, maybe at some point it's time. But now, we're getting on to the juicy stuff. It is, of course, the big topic of the video, of the podcast, and that is building a gimmick. I see this a lot, and I'm very opinionated on this, in the sense that there is a big difference between having a gimmick and then, you know, having character traits. You know, as someone who used to do quite a bit of creative writing, you know, I dabbled in, like, drama, I make films and all of that stuff. You know, there's a difference between having a character and having a gimmick. So, let's take Adam Adams, for example. So his character is obnoxious, douchey heel. That's his character. But his gimmick is that he is the pro wrestling prodigy. He is the guy that he believes is the future of professional wrestling. He is a man who is hell-bent on proving to the world that he is the best wrestler walking the planet, and in like 5 years time he is going to be above everyone, leaps and bounds basically. And I just kind of want to go through sort of like my thought process when I'm thinking of building a gimmick. So what I like to do, and this is different depending on who you are, whether or not you just make calls, or if you run a roster and you make your own characters for the show and whatnot. This is sort of my thought process. Again, you know, I'm always down to hear different things, so if you're someone that makes characters, or again runs a show, and you know, you're building gimmicks for people, let me know your thought process below, because again, it's always interesting to hear what people have to say when it comes to, you know, this kind of stuff. So my thought process is, when I'm making a new character, or when I'm trying to figure out a new gimmick for someone, I try and look at a gap in my roster. So let's just say, for example, if I looked at like a few names, say for example, let's go Rock and Rave Experience, because they're quite a polarizing gimmick, Operation Gold, and then the Broskies. So we have 2 quite goofy teams, one goofier than the other, the Rock and Rave Experience being the goofiest, the Broskies being kind of just like your frat boy team that can get very, very serious, and we have Operation Gold, who's like a heel team of hitmen, basically. The gap there is a relatively goofy heel team. That's where a team like the Clinic come in. You know, they can be a threat at times, but we've seen what happens with Jordy Diaz. We've seen what's happened with a bunch of people in terms of the Clinic. You know, Andre Fuller, Caleb Clark, you know, Jordy Diaz. whilst they try and act super serious, they are quite goofy at times. I mean, you know, the whole story of Geordie trying to defend Adam Adams when they have never interacted before, you know, for whatever reason other than just Geordie was annoyed at Bradley for whatever reason. To me, it was an interesting idea. And I think when you're building a gimmick, you want them to stand out. And so, I guess the biggest tip I could give you is do not be a carbon copy. I feel like this is something that is pretty much basic information. Never be a carbon copy of anyone. Be it another core, be it an actual wrestler, you know, that you see on like AEW or WWE. Don't base your entire gimmick around an indie wrestler either, because you never know when they're gonna blow up. And at the end of the day, they're always going to be able to do the gimmick better than you because they had the original idea and they have so many intricacies to it. And another big tip, and this is something that personally, I don't know, I wouldn't say it annoys me, but it's something that I'm kind of like, but that's not a gimmick, is when I ask someone for their gimmick and they just give me a nickname. I just wanna let it be known, personally, to me, a nickname is not a gimmick. It is an extension of your character and your gimmick. You know, no one wants a super serious cowboy gimmick with, like, the nickname of, I don't know, just off the top of my head, just looking at stuff, I don't know, the glass of apple juice, for example. You know, no one wants that. And imagine you have, like, this really, really cool character, and, like, they actually do have a cool gimmick, but when it comes to describing it, you go, well, my gimmick is that I am this. Or, like, my gimmick is that my nickname is this. It works sometimes, alright? Like, you know, just trying to think off the top of my head. Andre the Giant, I guess. And, like, Ultimate Warrior and, like, some of the older ones where, like, their nickname or, like, their name very much told you what they were. And I feel like that's another thing that we're kind of missing in core when it comes to gimmicks. I'm very much guilty of this, is we need names that tell you kind of what you're expecting with their gimmicks. So, like, for example, take the Lab of Psychosis. Sunshine Valley is also a fantastic one, so I'm using a few EPW examples here. So you've got Luna Olsen, but then you've also got Condominium. Now, I decided to go with the name Condominium because it sounded like a name that Psychosis would give to a creation of his that is like 6'10", is like 360 pounds, and is an absolute beast of a unit. And then you've got Sunshine Valley. Now, I don't know if people actually know what I based Zach Burke, Rex Hare, and Tory Manson off of, but all of their last names relate to around kind of like... So, obviously, Tory Manson got the name from Charles Manson, and Zach Burke and Rex Hare got their names from Burke and Hare. Timo Schreiber is just Timo Schreiber, you know. But he fits so well with the group that I was like, you know what, let's add him in. But, you know, there was that. And I just think, again, when you're building a gimmick, let's just narrow it down, because I've rambled a lot, but let's just narrow it down for the actual helpful bit. So that if you're listening to this whole thing and you're like, what did he say? Let me just break it down into the tips, alright? Look for a gap. If you're applying for a show, or, like I said, or if you're making a core for a show, or you're just making a core in general, look for gaps. Look for what people aren't doing, as opposed to what people are doing. Then, when you have that, think of the big details. Like, start off with the big details. So, like, you know, what is the main hook of the gimmick? What is going to get people interested in your character, and what is going to make you stand out? Because you could just say, I'm a douchey heel, But then if you go, I'm a douchey heel whose gimmick is, you know, he believes he's like a magical wizard or something, or like, you know, he's been in, like, he's got boots that have been blessed by like a priest or something, so he believes that he's been given God-given talents whenever he wears the boots, you know, something like that. Something that will bring people, or like, you know, something that will draw people in and will get people to at least give your character a chance, you know what I mean? And then once you have these bigger details, focus on the finer stuff. I did a really good thing on building a character. I think it was a couple months back on the podcast, and in that I kind of talked about how like there are a lot of questions you can ask. I would love to say that I have questions to ask about a gimmick, but gimmicks are so subjective in the sense that like one set of questions for like the Rock and Rave experience wouldn't work for the Lab of Psychosis because they're just completely different people. But maybe sometimes it can help you figure out the finer details of the character to then give the gimmick a bit more of a backstory, a bit more meat for people to sink their teeth into. This is a tip. Please don't just make a nickname a gimmick, please. It works for some people, but if you're gonna use the nickname as a gimmick, please add more detail to it. You know, I'm really talking about this because of the application form. Not to say that anyone, you know, did that, but just for people who are looking to, you know, fill in the form potentially, please don't put in the what is your gimmick, just I am, and then the nickname, because that will just make me not wanna pick you. Again, that's more of a nitpick for me. So, you know, if it works for you, do it. But I'm just saying, I've never been a fan of people whose gimmicks are just, this is my nickname, therefore it's my gimmick. You know. And I guess, just have fun with it. You know, I say this all the time with core stuff. Please, just have fun with it. If you're trying to craft a gimmick for a character, and you're sat there, and you're scratching your head, and you're struggling, and, you know, it's not coming together, then don't make that their gimmick. Find something else that's easier, something that just flows when you're, like, working on the backstory, and, like, all of the details of the gimmick. You know, if you're forcing yourself to make a character a certain way, then it's always going to be difficult to portray that character in that gimmick because, you know, again, you've kind of put yourself into a corner because if you're not enjoying crafting the gimmick, you're not going to enjoy using the gimmick and, like, coming up with stuff for the gimmick because you're like, but what would they do? What would they do? What would they, like, what would they do in this situation? Like, how does this relate to the gimmick? Whereas if you just get the gimmick in, like, 5 minutes, and then it takes, like, a day or two to iron out all the details because it's just so much, then you're gonna have way more fun with it. So, you know, like, you know, just have fun with it, man. Like, core is meant to be fun. It's a hobby for so many people. It's a fun thing that we do on 2K, and, you know, if you're not having fun with what you're doing, then change it up. Like, you know, no one's forcing you to stay what you are. No one's forcing you to keep, you know, the gimmick that you have. If you want to change, just change. So yeah, that's it really. That's been the podcast. I've been Byron. This has been a very early morning one, but quite late in terms of when I've actually got it recorded. And I will see you all next time.